Simone Biles has been such an incredible person over these past few months as her life has unfolded into the mainstream. She's become a great role model for people in the public are beginning to love her even more. So what is this new docu-series? Well, stay tuned because today we'll discuss that and some behind-the-scenes moments from this new Simone versus herself docu-series. First up, what is this docu-series? So the first thing to talk about is what is this docu-series based on? Well, of course, Simone Biles has had this incredible life with some awful moments. So how do you capture that in a series? Well, that's exactly what this docu-series is trying to do. They're trying to encapsulate the athlete's life into a series and really go deep into her development over these past few years. This series is 7 episodes and tells an incredible coming-of-age story that people just really wanted to enjoy. Having such a female-centered crew was a real benefit on this project, especially when it comes to the various components that make up Simone's story. Senior producer Katie Walsh told Insider, "Obviously, she's a survivor of sexual abuse. She's just gone through a lot and we can relate as women in a way that is useful and helpful to the overall project. This show has really showed that having a female-centric team going over a female-centric story is definitely the way to go. It shows just how amazing these stories can be when told from the correct perspective." Simone wanted to tell her story and this crew really created something that could all be proud of. Next up, more about this female-led team. When trying to get this show off the ground, Simone really needed to trust the people she was going to be working with. So what happened with this female-led team? Well, it makes complete sense that Simone would want to trust those she was working with as the subject matter of her life is really important and deep. She wanted to create this story in the best way possible. Simone's very much protected by the people that really care for her. Parrots told Insider magazine. For us to be able to embed ourselves with that in that inner circle, it was a process of trips and meetings and phone calls and really reading a lot about it and just like getting them. One thing that we did early on, we decided that even though Gotham Chopra is the director, he couldn't be too front and center, she added. A decision was made to bring a team that Simone's agents and her family were really going to welcome. Everyone involved on this piece of work was someone Simone really enjoyed working with and were mostly someone personal to her. Her mother, sister, agent, coach, and her teammates all helped her on this journey and really made the process better for Simone. They really built out a great production staff that all meshed well with one another. This 8-person team really made this story become a reality. And now they spent 2 years on the ground with Simone. The entire production of Simone versus herself took around 2 years of filming and actually allowed Simone to live her life. The crew for the show actually lived with her for a long time and even participated in their 2019 Thanksgiving dinner. The project was only set to last around a year, but of course, COVID struck the world and things went to hell. The crew had to change their plans, but as Simone began her training again, the show picked up speed once again. They made their way to Houston to follow her training. Because of the time they had all spent with one another, the team felt way closer and had bonded with one another. They endured the pandemic together, so it was really cool for them as they developed this amazing relationship with Simone in her life. "I could tell when she felt stressed. I could tell when she was in a good mood," Katie Walsh, the cinematographer, said. "It's all about creating a safe place where someone can talk. I always tried to come from a place of authenticity and honesty, and the journalism will get there. But you need to understand the person you're working with and be sensitive to their needs and put them first." The team had earned Simone's trust, and in turn, she offered the entire crew and the project her honest self. This really brought out everything that Simone wanted from the project and made the process much better from everyone involved. She even began to discuss harder topics with the crew, like they were close friends with one another. Next, as the Olympics came around, the crew was as tight as ever. As we all know, Tokyo was one of the worst times of Simone's life recently. So what was the crew and her like at that time? Well, the crew could already tell that something was off with Simone as they left for Tokyo. They recalled that when they spoke to Simone on the phone, they knew something was up with her. She wasn't acting herself at all. Shortly after that, her mother was by her side. Katie Walsh described Simone's mother as the most emotionally tapped-in person on the team. Her mother was the closest to her and attended every single one of her competitions up until that point. As we now know, Simone was dealing with the twisties, which left it so she basically couldn't do anything for the Olympics. The backlash was very high at the time, which clearly impacted Biles personally. It also didn't help that her mother wasn't actually able to be with her at the Olympics themselves. That was easily the hardest thing that had done up until that point, said the crew. The entire Olympic event just didn't go well for Simone, and it really changed public perception around her name. People in the press really started to hate her because they didn't understand the reason she gave for leaving the Olympic Games. For someone who isn't a gymnast, it's hard to explain what the twisties really is and it means for the athlete. Your body just won't do what you want it to do at that moment. It's really hard to overcome. Simone was already having a hard time without her mother, so this made everything worse for her behind the scenes. And next, what happened after the Olympics? No one expected that would happen at the Olympics for Simone, and the crew were devastated. Simone had been dealing with mental health struggles, and that was a huge part of the docuseries, but things clearly went in a worse direction for her. Even though the original plan for this series was to depict the story of another athlete and her obstacles in life, the series transformed into a new project based around the transformation of this amazing athlete. They really couldn't have planned any of this. One of the crew members said, "She defied all greatness in my opinion. Her story became more important when she realized she was worth more than gold medals. The awakening of putting her health first will define her legacy in a far better way than just being remembered for winning. We're also grateful that we witnessed in real time her transition, her growth, all the introspection she had to go through during that dark half a year where she was pretty lost but then came out of it so strong," Parrott said. Watching the rough cuts as the team was putting them together, we were like, holy cow, this is life unveiling in front of our eyes through the lens of this incredible athlete. Even with all this pain and confusion that she went through, it was just incredible, and the show really shows all this. She's grown into such an incredible person, and the behind the scenes stories really tell an amazing transformation. And finally, where can you watch this series? This series is a weird one when it comes to actually watching it. The show is only released on Facebook Watch, which is a pretty interesting way to air a show this big. Most documentaries would release on Netflix or Amazon Prime, but it seemed like they had this deal with Facebook from the beginning of production. The first 7 episodes are available right now on Facebook Watch, and more will have also probably been released by the time you see this video. The series is incredibly popular already, so maybe it could be released on other platforms in the near future. The Facebook platform isn't the biggest and best way to release a show, but it seems to have done really well, especially for the way it's been released. And that's the end of the video. This new Simone Biles series is a really interesting one for those interested in her life. She has an incredible story. The behind the scenes stories really make things even better. This new context we have for the entire series really puts it all into perspective. She really formed a new family with this crew, and it obviously really helped with this project. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let us know in the comments below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on. Thanks for watching. Bye.